You sat down to do one thing. You're not sure exactly when you stopped doing it. At some point you were reading something, then checking something else, then watching something you didn't plan to watch. 20 minutes passed, maybe more, and the thing you sat down for is still right there, unfinished, waiting. You weren't lazy, you weren't weak, you weren't even bored exactly. Something kept pulling you away. And the strange part is that this didn't always feel so hard. There was a version of you that could read for 2 hours without looking up, that could sit with a single task and stay inside it. That didn't feel this particular kind of tired at the end of the day. Not physically exhausted, but mentally scraped out, like something that was supposed to be full isn't anymore. That version of you didn't have a different personality. They had a quieter environment. Because what's changed isn't your capacity. It's the number of things competing for it. A study published this week in Nature Communications by researchers at Johns Hopkins found something unexpected deep inside the brain, not in the prefrontal cortex, the large, sophisticated region that handles reasoning, planning, and conscious thought, in the brainstem, a structure so old it exists across virtually every vertebrate alive today. Fish have it, birds have it, turtles, reptiles, mammals, and so do you. Tucked inside that structure is a small cluster of neurons that function as what the researchers called an attentional selection engine. Their job is to quiet competing signals, to decide in real time what deserves your attention and what doesn't. When the team temporarily switched these neurons off in mice, the animals became almost immediately distractible. Faint signals they would normally ignore pulled their attention completely off task. When the neurons were switched back on, focus returned. Silencing a handful of cells was enough to break concentration entirely. This circuit didn't appear recently. It may be one of the oldest mechanisms in the vertebrate nervous system, and it evolved for a very specific kind of world. Picture what attention looked like before language, before agriculture, before walls and artificial light. You were in an open environment, movement everywhere, wind in the grass, birds shifting in trees, insects, the sound of water somewhere nearby. A constant low-level stream of sensory information, all of it competing, all of it technically demanding a response. Without a way to filter, the brain would freeze. Every signal would carry equal weight. The lizard rustling the leaves on your left would register the same as the predator moving through the tall grass on your right. You need to hold focus on what matters, the fire, the trail, the person beside you, while everything else gets turned down. That is precisely what those brainstem neurons do. They don't amplify the signal you're attending to. They quiet everything else. A dimmer, not a spotlight. Reducing the noise so that the thing that matters can finally be heard. For most of human history, this worked. The environment was large, physical, and relatively slow. New signals arrived at a pace the circuit could manage. Something moved, you looked, you assessed. The loop closed, and you returned to what you were doing. It was calibrated for that pace. Now consider what that same system faces on an ordinary Tuesday. Not one or two competing signals across the course of a morning. Hundreds. A notification from one app while you're mid-sentence in a document. A sound from a video left open in another tab. A headline at the edge of your eye. An email marked urgent arriving the same moment a message thread lights up. The memory, surfacing without warning, that something else is overdue. Each one of those signals is designed, deliberately, carefully, to register as potentially urgent. To say, this one. Look here. This might matter. The circuit cannot ignore all of them. It was never built to. It was built to assess one thing at a time and return to the task. In the world it evolved for, most signals resolved naturally. The rustle turned out to be wind. Attention returned. The loop closed on its own. But a notification doesn't resolve. It opens a new loop, which leads to another. The system keeps switching, keeps spending energy assessing what can be ignored, and over the course of a long day, it runs down. Not metaphorically. Neurologically worn in a way that makes distraction progressively easier and sustained attention progressively harder. This is why the afternoon feels heavier than the morning, Why a full day of meetings leaves you unable to read a single paragraph. Why the simplest tasks feel unreachable by the time you finally sit down alone. The circuit has been running all day against a volume of incoming signals that nothing in evolutionary history prepared it for. It isn't a character flaw. It's a mismatch between a biological system shaped for one world and the demands of a completely different one. Knowing that doesn't make the distraction disappear, but it points towards something useful. The circuit gets worn down by switching, by constant interruption and the effort of deciding what to ignore. What restores it is the opposite, sustained, unbroken contact with one thing. Even 15 or 20 deliberate minutes of single-task focus, with no competing signals allowed to qualify as urgent, gives the system time to settle. Researchers find the brain doesn't just need fewer distractions, it needs protected windows where nothing new is permitted to demand attention at all. That means the phone in another room, notifications off, not just muted, one window open. Not because willpower is the answer, but because the system cannot do what it was built to do if the environment never stops telling it that everything is equally important. What feels like a modern failure, the fractured attention, the half-finished work, the mind that wanders before you've noticed it's gone, is not weakness. Your attention isn't broken, it's just outnumbered. Your brain didn't choose any of this. It just survived long enough to hand it down to you. That's the story this channel tells again and again. Not because you're broken, because you're ancient. If that means something to you, stay. Subscribe. There's a lot more buried in that ancient brain of yours. See you in the next one.